It's time to go ahead and incorporate my first upgrade into this RC. This is RPM's front bumper for the Slash 4-wheel drive. So to put this together, this part gets connected to here using 4 screws. After that, I need to connect the bumper to the bumper mount using 3 screws. Now it's time to move on to the rear bumper. This is also going to be an upgrade. This is RPM's rear bumper for the Slash 4-wheel drive. First thing I need to do is get the support arm and attach it to the rear bumper right there. I'm also going to be doing it to the right side as well. After that, I need to go ahead and connect these 2 pieces. This one that has the flat edge goes on the bottom just like that, and it's connected by a screw on each side. The last piece goes in right here, and it's held in with 2 screws, one on each side, and you can tell which side is the top because there's a ridge. This ridge is where the sway bar goes. With the front bumpers being built, it's time to go ahead and move them off to the side and bring in the front diff housing. It's time to attach the front A-arms. So I'm just going to go ahead and slide it into place right there, and then this pin gets pushed in right through the front. Same thing for the other side. After that, I'm going to go ahead and get this metal plate and slide it right here. To hold it in place, there's a screw that goes in right here. Now I can attach the front bumper. It's held on with 3 screws on the bottom. If I had the stock front bumper, there would be an extra part right here that would slide into the diff housing, and I would have to use 2 more screws right here to hold it on. Since I don't have this piece with the RPM part, I'm just going to go ahead and put 2 spare screws in there. Now it's time to go ahead and move on to the rear. It's the same process as the front. I'm going to go ahead and attach the A-arms using this pin. Slide it into position. Same thing for the other side. Hold it in place, slide in the pin. Then I'm going to go ahead and put this metal plate on. Now this is where the difference lies between the RPM bumper and the stock bumper. With the stock bumper, I would go ahead and slide this on, attach it, and there would be a screw that goes through the bumper and into the diff housing. However, with the RPM bumper, you don't do that. You put the screw in right now. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the bumper. The bumper is held on with 4 screws, 2 on top and 2 on bottom. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and attach the top of the dry shafts to the diff gears. So I need to line the holes up, slide on the dry shaft, and then put a grub screw right through the middle. I'm also going to be doing this with the front. After that, it's time to move on to the caster block and steering block. These are held together with 2 shoulder screws, 1 on top, 1 on bottom. Then I'm going to go ahead and put a couple bearings into the steering block. 1 on this side and 1 on this side. Now I'm going to get the dry shaft and shove it through the back. Before I do, I want to go ahead and show you that the front dry shafts are a little bit different than the rear ones, so they are not interchangeable. Now, like I said, I'm just going to stick it in through the back, make sure it's all the way through. I'm going to get a Teflon washer, put that on the dry shaft pin, and then I'm going to get this little bar and slide it through this hole. I got to make sure it's even on each side, and then I can snap on the wheel hex hub. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and get the front assembly, and then I'm going to slide on the dry shaft and then attach it to the A-arm. As you can see, there's a little cup that goes on the front part, and then this pin goes in right through the back. Push that down, tighten it the rest of the way, and I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. Now it's time to go ahead and move on to the back. Here I have the axle carrier. I'm going to put a bearing in on each side. Then I'm going to get the drive shaft, and I'm going to put a Teflon washer on first. Then I'm going to go ahead and slide it through the axle carrier. Then it gets another Teflon washer, followed by that little bar that goes through the axle. Make sure it's even on each side, and then snap on the wheel hex hub. Then I'm going to go ahead and slide it onto the top of the dry shaft, line it up with a bottom hole, and then I'm just going to insert this pin and tighten it down. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. With that taken care of, I can now install my next upgrade, rear aluminum camber links. Each one's held in with 2 screws. One side gets connected to the bottom of the shock tower, the other side gets connected to the top of the axle carrier. Now it's time once again to move on to the front, and they're going to get the same upgrade. Blue aluminum Camber links. Now one side is connected to the bottom of the shock tower, the other side is connected to the top of the caster block. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and connect the turnbuckles. One side connects right here, the other side connects right to the steering bell cranks. Next up, I need to go ahead and work on the shocks. So all four of the shocks have the same exact setup. There is a minor difference between the front shocks and the rear shocks, but I'll show you that when I'm building the rear shocks. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and get the piston and the shock shaft and slide it through the shock body. Once I pull it all the way through, I'm going to get one of these small little rubber seals, slide it onto the shock shaft, followed by a black seal made of plastic, and then another rubber one. Now I'm going to get this end cap, and then I'm going to screw that on. Once I screw on that seal, I'm going to go ahead and get some high quality foam that Traxxas likes to provide with their aluminum parts. I'm going to grip it with a wrench, and then I'm going to screw on the rod end. Now if you don't have any of this foam, you can just use some paper towels. Next, I'm going to be filling it with some shock oil. The shock oil I'm going to be using is 40 weight. And I'm going to fill it up 3/4 of the way. Then once I fill it up 3/4, I'm going to go ahead and pump the piston up and down until I get all the air bubbles out. Then I'm going to fill it up the rest of the way. Once it's full, I'm going to go ahead and get the shock cap, which is going to be another upgrade because these are the shock caps from the big bore shocks. So they are made out of aluminum. But I'm going to get the bladder. I'm going to go ahead and push it all the way in there. Make sure it lays flat. And then I'm going to tighten it on. Once it's on there, I'm going to go ahead and get the top shock spring brace, slide it on, followed by the shock spring, and then I'm going to pull the shock spring back and slide on the bottom shock spring brace. And I am done with this shock. Now it's time to do the others. So like I mentioned earlier, there is a small difference between the rear shocks and the front shocks other than the size. You're going to have to put on this little black spacer before you slide this into the shock body. Other than that, everything else is exactly the same. Now that the shocks are built, it's time to go ahead and install them. I'll go ahead and start with the front first. So for all four of them, I'm going to have to get a shoulder screw on the top with a washer on the other side. And now I'm going to attach that to the top of the shock tower. Once I'm done with the top, it's time to move on to the bottom, and I'm going to use a screw to attach it to the A-arm. And now I'm going to go ahead and do that same process with the other three shocks. And now that all the shocks have been installed, I am done for now.